New town, old scars, the day my fake son returned. I remember vividly the crisp autumn morning I left my hometown, the air thick with the scent of decaying leaves. I loaded everything of value into my old pickup truck, determined to forge a new life far from the pain of the past. Leaving wasn't easy. It was a necessity. Betrayal and deceit had shattered my life, and distance was the only balm for my wounds, the only way to heal from the hurt inflicted by those closest to me. After hours on the road, I stumbled upon a quaint, sleepy town, a place that felt ripe with the promise of a fresh start. The locals were welcoming, the pace of life unhurried, and the town possessed an undeniable charm. I spotted a dilapidated gas station and repair shop, a property that had languished on the market for years. Recognizing its potential, I submitted a lowball offer, surprisingly accepted. This modest property became the cornerstone of my rebuilding, the foundation upon which I would construct both my life and my business. One Saturday afternoon, I found myself quietly savoring the tranquility of the town's local tavern, a place that quickly became my sanctuary. Shortly after settling in, I purchased the gas station and repair shop, a steal considering it had sat vacant for 2 years. The previous owner, eager to be rid of it, was more than happy to sell. It was the perfect blank canvas for a fresh beginning, a tangible symbol of my escape from the past. My first act was to build a large retail store facing the gas station, addressing the town's need for a grocery store that remained open beyond 7 o'clock p.m. I strategically repositioned the fuel tanks so the pumps were clearly visible from the store, maximizing customer convenience and creating ample parking. The store thrived, operating 24/7, with peak hours between 7 o'clock p.m. and midnight. The garage, located at the rear of the property, maintained a more traditional schedule, operating from 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m., 5 days a week, with additional time allocated for special projects on Saturdays. Initially, the tavern owner expressed concern about my plan to sell basic liquor, but this venture eventually proved quite lucrative and provided much-needed employment opportunities for the community. The business flourished, exceeding all expectations. A restructuring of the store's internal merchandising, masterfully implemented by a woman I hired, resulted in rapid repayment of the equity loan and a necessary doubling of the staff to meet the overwhelming demand on Friday and Saturday nights. We catered to the tavern's clientele by stocking an array of junk food and, on Sundays, offered a selection of reasonably priced cold beer. One evening, I was enjoying a double shot of Jack Daniels, ice, water, and a lemon wedge, having just finished replacing the steering column on an old truck, a cherished family heirloom. It had taken 8 months to source the part and fabricate the necessary fixtures. The truck's owner, a man who had driven it since the 1940s, had no intention of ever parting with it. He joked that he wanted to be buried in it. The tavern was always at its liveliest between 4 o'clock p.m. and 7 o'clock p.m., a period when most of the regulars had already finished dinner. Within a couple of hours, the place would be buzzing with a lively, musical crowd, filled with farmers bringing their daughters for some after-work fun. In the 6.5 years I'd been in this town, I had established a solid reputation and forged many meaningful friendships. The close-knit community was ever watchful, keeping me informed of anything out of the ordinary. I made a point of visiting the tavern once a week, always on Saturdays, for a pre-dinner drink, my quiet time for reflection and contemplation. Then they walked in. The sight of them instantly soured my perfect day. The woman was my ex-wife's twin sister, and the young man accompanying her was my son, or so he had been presented to me for years. The flood of unwanted memories was immediate and overwhelming. It struck me then, with chilling clarity, you cannot truly see the evil that resides within your own home until you are far removed from it. The boy had grown considerably, bearing a striking resemblance to his biological father. The truth, it seemed, always finds a way to surface. The question was, what did they want from me now? They engaged the bartender in conversation, showing him a photograph before departing. I was thankful for my long, unkempt hair, beard, and mustache, features that significantly altered my appearance, especially considering my weight loss. Nobody recognized me. I'd sent a simple message earlier. "Come home. When can you?" About half an hour later, the bartender approached my table. "What did they want, Tom?" I asked. "They wanted to deliver a message," Tom replied. "They heard a rumor you were living here and came to check it out. They said a woman named Willa is dying of cancer and wants to make peace." He paused, seemingly weighing his words. "They asked for your picture, pretending not to know your name." "Who are they and what do they really want?" I asked, taking out a cigarette, ripping off the filter, and lighting it. "The woman is your ex-wife's twin sister," Tom answered, "and the young man is your ex-wife's illegitimate son, the one she palmed off as yours for years." He looked at me intently. "Based on their body language, I'd say they're partly honest, but definitely hiding something big." I nodded, my thoughts swirling. My ex-wife and her sister had always been masters of deception, adept at appearing genuine while simultaneously betraying those around them. Tom retreated behind the bar, leaving me to wrestle with the implications of their visit. My mind drifted back almost 7 years to the day I left, vowing not to return for another 7. They had laughed then, dismissing me as a fool. They'd learned a harsh lesson that day, a lesson reinforced by my complete radio silence. They hadn't understood the depth of my pain, the severity of my hurt. They thought I was merely angry, upset by their cruel joke. Little did they know that just weeks before I left, I'd discovered that our youngest child was my brother-in-law's son. That revelation had been the catalyst, the igniting spark that launched me on this long, arduous journey. A family member, someone who had witnessed Willa and Tammy, the evil twins as she called them, betray me time and again, had provided irrefutable proof of their wicked machinations, evidence of their black magic, their pure malevolence. Before I left, we had discovered a new life insurance policy on me with a double indemnity clause for accidental death, totaling $4 million. A wise old woman had urged me to flee. When I left for my work truck, they had no idea it was already packed with everything I valued from our 16-year marriage. I drove away without looking back, ultimately ending up 2 states away. Part of the blame, I had to admit, rested on my shoulders. I had gotten Willa pregnant when she was 16, and I was 18. My family had pressured me into marriage, and soon we had 2 more children. They thought it was hilarious. Willa often told our daughters, "Your father will come back when he cools off. He needs to regain his sense of humor." A few hours later, a sheriff's car pulled up to the house. Willa answered the door. "Are you Mrs. Willa Rhine?" the sheriff asked. "Yes," she replied. "Ma'am, you've just been served." She laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when she opened the envelope, she realized I had dissolved our marriage without a second thought. The grand dame told me she was shocked. My attorney listed all our assets and liabilities, including a DNA report confirming the affair that lasted a year. The divorce petition included details, receipts, and photos from their hotel rendezvous. Included in the envelope was a letter stating that I was suing her husband for child support, infidelity, and defamation. Their laughter ceased. The joke was no longer on me. I had the last laugh. Their joke had been that I was only good for making money. Everything I touched seemed to turn to gold, so Willa and the kids were spoiled and never wanted for anything. Later, Willa found out I had sold 3 of our businesses, paid off all our debt, and sold our 2 apartment buildings at a profit. I canceled all our credit cards, removed my name from our bank accounts, and signed over my half of the house to her. I took half our net worth in cash, effectively reducing our monthly cash flow from $10,000 to 0. Willa's sister learned the true cost of using me. My attorney froze their assets before they could even receive the subpoena, leaving them financially destitute after the divorce. My attorney called Willa in after the divorce and reimbursed her for 1/4 of their losses. "Why would he do that?" she asked. For him, it was never about the money, my lawyer replied. It was about principle. He hopes this money gives you a chance to start over and learn from your experience. Willa refused to agree to the divorce without speaking to me, leaving us legally separated but not divorced. I had no need to talk to someone who had lied to me for years. She had to work for the first time, learning that money disappears quickly without income. I had my attorney forward important mail to a rented FedEx mailbox, which was then forwarded to my work address weekly. I did this knowing that Willa and her sister were masters of manipulation and revenge. I knew they would eventually try to get back at me. It was not a question of if, but when. Their family didn't believe in letting things go, and my absence would only infuriate them. The longer this went on, the worse their payback would be. They wouldn't let it go easily. Until now. With Tammy's appearance, I thought I had finally escaped their clutches. But their game, I realized, was far from over. I finished my drink and left through the back door, just in case they were watching the front. I crossed the empty lot behind the house and walked around the block to my pickup. As I was unlocking the door, a man approached. "You're a hard man to find, Mr. Arthur Sethrasim, no doubt," he said. "How do you know my name is Peter Edwards?" I replied. "Your oldest daughter, Connie, is my wife." "That could be a blessing or a curse," I said, "if she acts like her mother. So why are you here?" "I came looking for you," he said. "Some things need to be settled." "That would be the case if your mother-in-law would just sign the divorce agreement," I retorted. "What divorce agreement?" Peter asked, surprised. I told him to follow me. We drove through town, then onto a long driveway leading to a farmhouse. Inside my home office, I showed him the divorce papers and let him make copies. Peter didn't need to know that I didn't live there. I had built it for the Grand Dame, hoping she would eventually leave her old home. Peter was a pleasant-looking, confident, and seemingly educated young man. I wondered if he was who he claimed to be, or part of Willa and Tammy's scheme. He used my Wi-Fi to download files onto his laptop. All important records were stored there, with a master copy and a safety deposit box. He was interested in a copy of the sheriff's report Willa signed when served with the summons. He managed to print a damaging letter from Willa's attorney to mine acknowledging the agreed property division, but refusing to finalize the divorce without my in-person meeting. While Peter worked, I observed his expressions, noting that he was learning new information. My paperwork contradicted what he believed. "Do you think Connie knows?" Peter asked. "That's something you'll have to find out," I replied. "Here's a question for you. Is Willa really dying of cancer?" "Who told you that?" Peter asked. "Tammy and Seth told a bartender that today, but I know Willa is fine." "She's in a common-law marriage with her former lawyer and is expecting his second child," Peter said. "She's the one who asked me to find you to start the divorce. She claims it's necessary so she can remarry." He called his wife and put it on speakerphone so I could hear. "Connie, did you know your mother lied about the divorce not being finalized?" Peter asked. "What are you talking about?" Connie replied. "Mom told us Dad abandoned us and cleaned out whatever was left before leaving town. If it wasn't for our stepfather, we wouldn't have survived." "I'm sending you the legal file," Peter said. "Read it and contact me as soon as possible." While they talked, I grabbed 2 bottles of Bud, opened them, and put one in front of him. "Why didn't you tell my daughter you found me?" I asked. "Connie and I have only been married 2 years, and we just had a son 3 months ago. For now, I'm not going to tell anyone I found you," Peter said. "Everyone thinks I'm investigating a case." He showed me his badge, confirming he was a police officer for the Paradise Police Department. I checked the department's webpage on my laptop, proving he was telling the truth. "It was the accident report from a few months ago that led me to you," Peter explained. "Connie wrote a report on your disappearance, which was forwarded to the wanted list. The insurance company informed me of the ruling in your favor." So why didn't you tell Connie you found me? I asked again. After reviewing your file, it became clear something else might be going on, Peter said. I wondered what happened to the $250,000 cash Willa was supposed to get, along with the house deed. And why are they all lying about what really happened? Yeah, sounds like I've been fed lies too, I said. His phone rang. It's my wife. I'll put it on speaker, Peter said. Please keep it down. Hi, honey, Connie said. Where did you get all this from? Is it true we've been lied to for years? Seth doesn't know his origins, and neither do I. My sister Karen will be shocked. Mom chastised her for defending Dad. They don't speak anymore. This story contradicts everything we've been told. Mom and Auntie gave Dad no choice. They've been manipulating his life for years. What bothers me is that the divorce isn't finalized because Mom won't sign it. What's really going on? It's true, Peter said. I got the information from your father's lawyer's widow. I had to go out of state to find her. Her husband kept duplicates of all his records. From the paperwork, it looks like your mother was served with a divorce petition the same day he left. I wrote a note for Connie to talk to her great-aunt Josie if she was still alive, I said. Peter nodded. Pete, it's crucial to find my father now, Connie said. He deserves to be free of Mom and her schemes, at least to finalize the divorce. What happened to the money she got? And why did she have to sell the house if it was hers? The more I look into this, the more I wonder what's going on and why she planned to sue him for desertion as soon as she found him, Connie continued. Ask my sister to watch our son a bit longer, and you talk to Aunt Josie about what we found. Maybe she'll open up. This must stay between us for now, Peter said. It looks like there may be serious fraud. Why has your mother been slandering your father for years? I'll need to talk to the district attorney. The $250,000 cash disappeared once it reached your father's lawyer. Don't tell your sister yet, I said. If the DA investigates, it's best no one else knows. I got up to get us some drinks, giving Peter privacy until he finished his call. Why do you want Connie to talk to Aunt Josie? Peter asked. Josie gathered all the information about Willa and George's affair, I said. She never married, but watched over the family like a mother, raising her only daughter. Being a single mom changed her perspective. She thought Tammy and Willa conspired and used George and me, but their ultimate goal is unclear. If it's true, why? Peter asked. Aunt Josie's granddaughter, Jod, wants her to move in with her, but Josie insists on waiting until the truth comes out. Jod visits with her 2 sons. Jod leads a very withdrawn life, I said. Socializing with Willa and Tammy takes a toll on everyone. They've used people most of their lives. It wasn't until Josie gave me the material that I realized this. Do you want to ask me about your children before I leave? Peter asked. Not until I know you're who you say you are, I replied. This could be another part of their game. Look into the sudden pass-away of my lawyer, because if she's planning to sue me, what makes her think she can win? Peter's face turned white, realizing the kind of people he had married. We decided to trust each other enough to exchange numbers. He promised to keep me informed. I walked him to the door, shook his hand, and said goodbye. After he left, I cleaned up, locked the apartment, and took the long way home to ensure I wasn't followed, giving me time to think. My life had improved since putting the past behind me. Did I want to relive it all again? Knowing Willa and Tammy, I had to prepare for what was coming, as they would go to any length for money. As soon as I walked through the door, 2 little kids grabbed my legs. I picked up my 3- and 4-year-olds, the apples of my eye, just like their mother. I felt blessed to have all 3 of them in my life. My wife, Jod, called out that dinner was almost ready, so I went to wash up. Over dinner, I told her about my day. Since closing the store, I couldn't have imagined my life turning out like this. When I left paradise almost 7 years ago, I promised my grandmother Josie that I would keep in touch, and I did, calling her every Sunday. About a year and a quarter ago, she called me for help. Her granddaughter, Jod, needed to escape a failed marriage and find a safe place to start over. Jod, 10 years younger than me, had no children and lived on an army base out of state. I didn't know much about her, but I owed Josie and was glad to help. It took me a week to find and partially furnish a 2-bedroom apartment for her in a small town, a near impossible feat without a friend's help. When I arrived to pick up Jod, she had quit her job, emptied her bank accounts, and packed her bags. Her husband was about to enlist in the army after his last 2 training exercises. I quietly arrived around 8 p.m. with a rented U-Haul truck. With the help of a few neighbors and friends, we moved everything she wanted into the truck. I left her town in under 4 hours, refusing to say where I was from for safety. As we drove back, Jod and I started to get to know each other. Late that night, she got a call from her grandmother. I smiled when she said, "Grandma, Art picked me up. You could have warned me. He's a wild bushman who might look half decent if he cleaned up." The next day, Josie contacted Jod's attorney to have all her legal documents sent to my FedEx box. Jod warned that her soon-to-be ex-husband could cause trouble, so I took steps to protect her. Jod then took over managing my store and proved to be an excellent manager, making successful changes and prioritizing customer needs. Her personality attracted many new clients, and she established a well-organized, problem-free staff. Josie had to get a restraining order against Jod's ex due to his constant threats. He was dishonorably discharged and moved back to my old hometown, thinking Jod would be there. Jod wore a diamond ring, which helped her adjust to her new life. She handled banking and bookkeeping, gaining everyone's acceptance as I had introduced her. Jod's honesty and personality made her wonderful, and her long black hair was often out of her face. When asked about her ring, she replied, "I'm sure you'll figure it out," sparking rumors that she was my future mail-order bride. She started bringing me lunch on Saturdays, as I often forgot to eat while working, resulting in weight loss. Our relationship grew naturally. Everyone assumed we were a couple, and Josie kept us updated on events back home. We became curious when we learned Jod's ex was friendly with Tammy. The day Jod's divorce was finalized, our relationship deepened. We celebrated with friends at the local bar, sharing our first kiss during a slow dance under dim lights. 6 months later, we moved in together. While the kids were bathing, I shaved off my beard and mustache, leaving only stubble. The kids watched in amazement. I soaped my face and theirs with the bowl and brush Jod bought me for Christmas, much to their delight. Jod walked in, surprised to see the kids giggling with soapy faces as I finished shaving. "It looks like Daddy would look like you with a clean face," Jod teased. "Should I cut his hair too?" Both toddlers eagerly said yes. I laughed and said, "I'll let the barber handle that on Monday." "No, I'll do it myself before you change your mind," Jod insisted. After drying off the kids and getting them dressed for bed, they sat at the kitchen table and watched Jod cut my hair. By the time she finished, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. I told Jod she did a great job. She sent me to shower off the loose hair while she cleaned up. During this, her grandmother called to say Connie had just left. Jod believed her grandmother was ready to confront the family, straightening things out. Connie learned that my 3 children were supposed to receive $600 each per month from annuities I had set up for child support, but they hadn't received any of it. The next week, I endured jokes from everyone about my new look. People asked Jod if she had to blackmail me into joining normal society. Jod humorously replied that I had promised to bathe at least 3 times a week. Most got the joke, some didn't. It was interesting to see how people acted when they believed they were superior. Bird of Paradise informed me that I would be sued in civil court for child abandonment, desertion, and back child support. Jod and I found this amusing, thinking a judgment would lead to a collection service trying to find me. When the mailman broke the news, he also found it funny. His boss and the DA hired an attorney to represent me, using my situation to piece things together. Peter estimated that Willa and Tammy had stolen over $48,000 from each of our children. They re-examined my former attorney's sudden pass-away, turning it into an open criminal case. Jod's ex-husband became a person of interest. If the findings were true, Willa and Tammy faced 7 to 10 years in prison, and Willa's former lawyer, now her common-law husband, could be disbarred. The lawyer they hired for me would be paid by them, and I needed to stay hidden to help build a stronger case. We had a few weeks of peace. Then Josie called Sunday night, informing us that paperwork would be filed on Monday. She emailed me everything she had collected over 7 years, including notarized statements, videotaped conversations, and names of attorneys for a countersuit. A $2 million accident insurance policy caught my eye, explaining some missing money. Jod found out it had been purchased 6 months before I left. We spent half the night forwarding information to the DA, certain this was a setup to lure me back. The next morning, Jod called the recommended attorneys and picked one, sending them everything along with a retainer. As soon as Willa's team filed the lawsuit, I would serve them before receiving it. On Friday morning, Jod called me. Josie was on her way with guests, having left Thursday night. The overnight hotel stay signaled things were escalating. Jody and I decided to close the shop on Saturday, enjoying a long weekend with family. Peter, Connie, and their son were en route. Connie only knew they were visiting Jody. Around 7:00 p.m., we saw a Ford Explorer and Escape pull into the driveway. Several adults emerged. Jody noticed my apprehension and took my hand. My truck was concealed in the garage, ensuring my presence remained unknown. "Who's that with Josie?" Jody asked, her voice laced with concern. "That's Peter, his wife Connie holding their baby, and Karen, my second oldest daughter," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. "Are you ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be," I said, Jody, holding our youngest child, opening the front door. We all stepped out to greet our guests. Karen burst into tears at the sight of me, a wave of emotion washing over her. I handed my son to his great-grandmother and embraced Karen tightly. Connie gave her son to Peter and joined us. My daughters had blossomed into beautiful young women, and seeing them together was a breathtaking sight, a moment etched forever in my memory. "Good to see you again, Peter," I said, shaking his hand after the introductions were complete. Jody served a magnificent dinner, a succulent beef shoulder, creamy mashed potatoes, rich gravy, fluffy scones, Yorkshire pudding, tender string beans, and a warm apple pie for dessert. Once the children were settled, the serious conversations began. "Art, is it all right if I call you Dad?" Peter asked, his voice hesitant but hopeful. I nodded. "Dad," Peter continued, his tone becoming grave, "the DA believes Jody's ex, Brad, was involved in your lawyer's accident. They're comparing paint samples from his car with the current owners. If it matches, he'll be charged with manslaughter." Peter explained that the fire which destroyed his office the same night was ruled arson. Security footage showed him in the background, a detail Willa and her attorneys were using to their advantage. Having sealed the divorce papers, they believed there was no concrete evidence to counter their claims. They'd filed a lawsuit against me earlier that week. Jody looked at me and wept openly. "I always thought you were overprotective when you moved me here," she confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "But now I see you weren't. I thought your questions to my grandmother were excessive, but now I realize you needed to understand who we were dealing with before making a plan." "Willa and Tammy received your lawsuit on Thursday," Josie added, her voice firm. "They must have realized I was communicating with you. We feared they'd start tormenting you, so we came here quickly." "Grandma, we got your house ready," Jody said, her voice filled with relief. "It's finished, so you just need your clothes." "I brought most of it in the car," Josie chimed in. "Connie will ship the rest, including the antiques. I gave her power of attorney to sell the house and furniture. It was time to leave our temporary paradise. I'll drive back with Peter and Connie and rent a truck to haul everything out, I declared, a steely resolve hardening my gaze. It's time to see if our suspicions are correct. What suspicions? Peter inquired, his brow furrowed with concern. The lawsuit against me is a ploy to lure me out, I said, my voice low and steady. With $2 million in accidental death insurance, it's clear my former attorney's death was a test. Peter, Connie, Karen, and Josie's faces paled as the truth dawned upon them. They were planning your death, Dad, Connie whispered, her voice barely audible, her eyes wide with horror. You knew it before you left town. I had a good idea at the time, but even my lawyer didn't believe me, I replied with a confident smile. He experienced firsthand that I was right. Peter excused himself to make some urgent calls, giving my daughters, my wife, and me some precious time to catch up. Jody unearthed pictures from when we first met. Both daughters admitted they wouldn't have recognized me back then. When Peter returned, a hush fell over the room. Willa will be taken into custody after the holiday, Peter announced, his voice measured and authoritative. We can hold her for 48 hours before charging her with 3 counts of theft for stealing annuities from her children. We'll slow down the process so she won't get a bond hearing immediately. Dad, Josie said, her voice clear and determined. If you can fly in on Wednesday, rent a U-Haul, and visit some old places to get noticed, tell anyone who asks that you're here to pack Josie's things. This way, Willa will have to communicate from jail. The district attorney confirmed your suspicions were right, Peter continued. We'll have police protection for you at Josie's house until everything is resolved. Peter? Jody asked, her voice tight with worry. Are you using my children's father as bait to lure out my cousins? What assurance do I have that he won't become a victim? I looked at Jody, my gaze unwavering. She saw my determination etched in my eyes. Damn, you'll do it without hesitation, no matter what, I think, she said, a mixture of awe and apprehension coloring her tone. Jody knew me better than I knew myself. Art has always been like that. That's why I called him, to save you from your ex, Josie said, her voice laced with gratitude. Art never asks anyone to do what he wouldn't do himself. He wants to rid us of those witches for good. My only fear is Art going back into danger, Jody replied, a slight smile playing on her lips, despite her apprehension. If Art were a boxer, Josie said, a thoughtful expression on her face, he'd be a world title holder. He's fast on his feet and can outthink them. Willa and Tammy have no idea he knows anything, I reassured them, my voice calm and confident. Ladies, relax. I'll be in Peter's capable hands. If anything happens to me, I added, my voice firm, remember, he'll have to answer to Connie, my daughter. Peter simply nodded, acknowledging the inherent risks. Later, while the women were engrossed in conversation, Peter and I spoke privately. The DA thinks Jody's ex will make his move once he knows you're in town, Peter said, his voice low. He'll be furious knowing you rescued Jody from her terrible marriage. Willa will learn you're here from a planted informant in the city jail early Thursday morning, Peter continued. If Huon's caught in the act, will he spill everything to save himself? I asked, my voice laced with concern. Based on his military background, he's always admitted responsibility when caught, Peter replied. He's a follower, not a leader, so I expect him to give up easily. He sticks with Willa and Tammy because he's easily manipulated. The sign read, Welcome to City of Refuge, population 34,848. It confirmed what I already knew. The city council had declared that U.S. laws didn't apply here. It was the Wild West, justice dependent on the whims of local authorities. Law-abiding citizens were prosecuted while illegals were ignored, a warped manifestation of progressivism. The working class paid for the sins of others to appease those in power who craved lower wages and cheaper labor. Not much had changed in almost 7 years, aside from the newly paved Main Street. Everything else looked the same. I decided my first stop should be my old favorite place, if it still existed. Thankfully, Bob and Betty's Burger Bar was still there, looking much the same, albeit freshly painted. I pulled into the parking lot, exited the U-Haul, and headed for the main entrance at 11:15 a.m., just before the weekday lunch rush. I was counting on being recognized. I was, after all, a businessman in a former life, and I wanted everyone to know I was back. As I sat down and picked up my menu, I noticed several people staring and using their cell phones. A server approached, carrying my coffee and creamer. "Are you ready to order?" she asked politely. "Is the Wednesday special of meatloaf, baked beans, and garlic mashed potatoes available?" I inquired, testing the waters. "How do you know about that?" the server asked. Her curiosity piqued. "It's for regular customers and not advertised." "Tell Jack that Art wants brown gravy and fried onions with the meatloaf," I instructed, a sly smile playing on my lips. The waitress looked at me as if I were insane. "Never mind," I said, standing up. "I'll tell him myself." I walked through the swinging doors into the kitchen, the server trailing behind, shouting my order. Jack turned, his eyes widening in recognition. "You dumbass," Jack said, a smirk spreading across his face. "You're a few weeks early. Welcome back, old friend." Jack, son of the original owner, never changed the name. We'd been friends most of our lives. We chatted until just before the rush hour, and he asked a staff member to get his wife, Susan, to join us, giving us a chance to discuss more sensitive matters. "Art, you should know that after you left, my wife ended her friendship with Willa and Tammy for good," Jack revealed. "She didn't like what they did or said about you and the kids." "A few things are about to happen," I explained. "Last night, there was supposed to be an arrest that, if things go right, will trigger several events like a row of dominoes. Connie's husband, Peter, works with me. That's why I came back early," I added. Jack looked at me seriously. "He's a damn good cop and an honest man. He put 2 of our former city council members in jail last year for corruption. You'll have to tell me more later. There are too many big ears here." We saw Sasha pull into the parking lot. She looked good. I sat down, waiting for her to come in, knowing she'd see me from behind and not suspect anything was amiss. "Jack, what happened?" Susan asked, her voice laced with concern. "It was important," Sasha said when she saw me. I stood up and turned to her. Sasha, my little sister, had lost her composure. Her older, meaner brother was home. I hugged her tightly as if it were just yesterday. It took her a few minutes to calm down. Jack asked the kitchen staff to leave us alone for a few minutes. "Do Mom and Dad know you're back?" Sasha asked, her voice still trembling slightly. "No, and it's best if we keep it a secret for a few days," I replied, my voice low and reassuring. "Are you here because Willa was taken into custody last night?" "Yes, and it's going to get worse before it gets better," I said. "Once I settle in, I'll be under police protection. The police are now looking at my former lawyer's death with new eyes, believing it's connected to the arson attack on his office." Jack and Sasha's expressions spoke volumes. It was well known that the district attorney, appointed 3 years ago, was trying to resolve many unsolved cases. "You're a decoy to draw someone out," Jack said quietly, his eyes narrowed in thought. "If this is correct," I replied, "the arson, the liquidation, and several other crimes will be solved in the next few days. This was all done to force me back to the city. Willa's arrest and my sudden return will disrupt a carefully planned conspiracy." "What's behind all this?" Jack asked, his curiosity piqued. "A $2 million insurance policy with double indemnity on accidental death. Insured on me," I said, my voice unwavering. My sister murmured, her eyes widening in understanding. As we walked out of the restaurant toward my rental truck, we were chatting when we noticed Tammy pulling up beside us. "Where are you staying?" my sister whispered, her voice low and urgent. At the Grand Dame's house, I replied. I'll be moving her stuff to the new house. Josie left town, Sasha asked, her brow furrowed with concern. Why? She wants to be near her granddaughter and our 2 sons, I answered with a smile. Jody and I have been together for over 5 years. We have 2 boys who recently turned 3 and 4. My sister was in complete shock. How did you and Jody end up together? She asked, her voice filled with astonishment. Josie and I stayed in touch the whole time, I explained. When Jody needed help leaving a failed marriage, her grandmother called me. I moved her to my place. We believe her ex caused my lawyer's death and the fire at his office. Do Tammy and Willa know you're aware of what's happening? Sasha asked, her voice tight with apprehension. No, but they'll find out soon enough when they start making their moves, I replied, my eyes fixed on Tammy as she approached. Art, Tammy said, her voice strained. I need you to drop part of your lawsuit against us. The district attorney will charge Willa within 48 hours, I said, my voice firm. Unfortunately, my attorney says we can't do that because Willa filed a new divorce petition, claiming desertion, abandonment of the child, and back child support. Until the court rules on her claims, everything has to stay as it is. You can't say that. How will we bail her out with no assets? Tammy asked, her voice rising in panic. You have a court order freezing everything, I suggested calmly. Maybe your father could help by putting up his house as collateral. After all, you're both his daughters. Tammy turned and walked away, clearly disappointed. Willa and Tammy's father has nothing to do with them, Sasha said, her voice laced with bitterness. Not since he found out about Seth's true origins. He says they turned out just as bad as their mother. That brought a smile to my face. Finished with that, I got in the U-Haul and drove toward Josie's house, stopping to pick up packing materials. 3 hours later, I was backing into Josie's driveway, using the large mirror to park close to the garage door. Once outside, I locked up before entering the house. I checked to make sure nothing had been touched inside. Josie said she'd left the curtains open, but they were closed. I texted Peter to ask if he'd closed them. He replied that police officers in the house might have done it. Knowing this, I unlocked the front door and went inside. Mr. Rhine, the officer said, holding out a cell phone. Peter Edwards wants to speak with you. Hi, Peter, I said, picking up the phone. Looks like those who need to know, Peter said. Tammy talked to me at the burger place after I finished my long lunch. She wanted me to lift the lien on her and her sister's assets, and I refused. I heard that, Peter said. We taped Willa and Tammy discussing their plans. Jody's ex, Brad, came up a lot. Willa told Tammy to let him know that you know where Jody is. That should motivate him to do what we need. Our hunch was right because Brad showed up not an hour later. Willa told him where you were staying. Our informant, who was arrested today, told her you were back to move Josie's things. When Brad asked where Willis said to her granddaughter Jody's house, Peter continued. A few minutes later, I saw the garage door open. Climbing into the van, I pulled out bundles of cardboard boxes and started packing up the house. At 6:30 p.m., the pizza from Papa John's arrived. When the delivery driver knocked, I opened the door. He asked if I was moving. I said no, just helping a friend. Brad made his move around 11 o'clock p.m. Using a tire iron, he picked the front door lock and slipped inside. Seeing a light in the kitchen, he headed there, pulling a 9mm pistol from under his shirt. He found me sitting there, drinking coffee. Hey, Art, Brad said. Willa and Tammy say hi. I'm here to find out where Jody is so I can visit her. Sorry, but I'd never tell, I replied, my voice calm but firm. My lawyer eliminate her, or the man who burned his office? Before you eliminate me, because we both know you will, how much were you promised from the insurance settlement? What makes you think I did it? He asked, taking the bait. Because you seem like someone they could manipulate into doing their dirty work, I said, my voice laced with sarcasm. So how much of the $4 million on the accidental death policy did they promise you? 4 million? They told me it was only $750,000, he said, his voice laced with disbelief. I laughed. Did you know Seth is actually the son of Tammy's first husband? His face turned white. George and I have been manipulated and used by both twins for years, I explained. My attorney, working on my divorce, sued George and Tammy for everything they had. Brad's face went white. That's why I knew Willa suing me for desertion and back child support was a scam, I said. The divorce was finalized and just needed her signature. She manipulated me into coming back. That's when I put it all together. You're just another pawn they played, so ask yourself, what are their plans for you? My divorce only delayed their plan to eliminate me. You eliminating my lawyer put their original plan back in motion. You have a chance to set them back for years. Knowing them as we do, what does your gut tell you? It's hard to watch a fool realize he's expendable once he's no longer needed, Brad said, his voice defeated. I'm screwed either way. The fact that your lawyer lost control of his car and hit a tree at 70 Mapichoam is manslaughter, I said. Manslaughter would get you life. You could get 5 to 10 for manslaughter, but liquidation is life. When I'm dead, they can claim you acted out of rage over Jody and didn't know what you were doing. Did they set you up to be a scapegoat? Most accidental death policies don't cover liquidation. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? I asked. You'd make a deal, turn in state's evidence, and hope your cooperation is taken into account. That way you'd get revenge on those planning to take you out, Brad said, his voice barely a whisper. Brad put the weapon on the table. Call the police, he said, his voice filled with resignation. Brad, I said, turn around. They're standing right behind you. Connie watched her husband on the phone, wondering what was wrong. Peter had told her that her father was at Josie's. A late call on his cell phone woke them both up. While he was talking, she put the kettle on to make hot chocolate for them. When Peter hung up the phone, he was smiling. Your father surprised us all tonight, Peter said, his eyes twinkling. He talked Brad out of it and basically forced him to confess everything. The undercover cops videotaped the whole thing. Connie froze in surprise. How did my father do that? She asked, her voice filled with amazement. He told Brad some facts he didn't know, like the truth about Seth's origins, Peter explained. I think your father convinced Brad that the insurance policy wouldn't pay out for liquidation. That was the deciding factor. Even I don't know if that's true, but it created enough doubt for Brad to accept the consequences of a lesser offense instead of life without parole. Aunt Josie always said your dad was a quick thinker, Connie said, her voice still filled with wonder. But this was unexpected. What does this mean for my mom and sister? Connie asked, her voice laced with apprehension. If Brad agrees to testify against them in court, they'll both be charged with arson, manslaughter, and at least attempted liquidation of your father, Peter said, his voice firm and reassuring. Connie picked up her cell phone and called Jody to let her know they'd made a breakthrough. Josie would watch the kids for a few days because Jody was going to the airport. Connie would meet her when she got a text with her arrival time. After finishing the call, she explained everything to her sister. By then, Peter had dressed and was heading to the station to get Brad's signed statement before the night ended. I didn't wake up until 8 a.m. The first thing I did was call Jack to get the front door fixed. He said he knew someone, and within half an hour they were there. The door was replaced, new trim and lock installed. The gentleman was just finishing when my daughter, Connie, drove up with Jody. Jody jumped out of the car and ran to me, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, I realized how much she had been through. Brad was taken into custody last night, I said. He surrendered to the police, protecting me. I was never in any real danger. If that was the case, why didn't you call me? Jody asked, her voice laced with a hint of hurt. Why did I have to hear about it from Connie? It was almost 2 a.m. when the police cleared out. I answered honestly, I said, putting my arm around my wife and pulling her close. I figured I'd call you today. I promise I will never put myself in that kind of danger again. As soon as the repairman finished, we locked the car, put her luggage away, and went to my brother's restaurant to eat. There, we were met by Karen, Sasha, and my parents. Jack's staff had to move 2 tables so we could all sit together. Jody was warmly greeted by everyone. Our breakfast, when it arrived, was excellent. Jack was so excited about what had happened that we ate it all. My parents were thrilled to learn that Jody and I had 2 sons, Carson and Hunter, named after both my grandfathers. They looked through all the pictures of our children and us that Jody had saved on her cell phone. My daughters opened up and told them about discovering me with Josie. We were still there when Peter joined us. I noticed he looked tired. "Willa and Tammy are in custody now," Peter said, his voice weary but relieved. "Brad confessed to everything, including his initial plan to eliminate his father. He'll be charged with arson and manslaughter when he testifies in the witch trials. Tammy and Willa face 3 counts of grand larceny, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit liquidation, and fraud. The district attorney is meeting with the divorce judge who handled your father's case to expedite the finalization of your divorce." "Peter," Jody asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "are you saying that Art and I can finally get married?" "The DA took the papers to the judge," Peter explained. "Along with Dad's original divorce papers, he hopes the judge, being fully informed, will waive Willa's signature requirement, the waiting period, and issue the divorce certificate." "Jody," I said, a smile spreading across my face, "I think I'd better buy you a proper engagement ring today and finally propose." Everyone murmured at my remark. Tears welled up in Jody's eyes. She had always believed we would do it, but this was something she hadn't expected. Before we left, Mom and Dad made us promise to come over for dinner. Jody and I busied ourselves packing until about 5:30 p.m., then we headed to my parents' house for dinner. Mom and Dad had a lot of questions. Jody shared how I had saved her from a failed marriage thanks to her grandmother. Then she talked about getting her first job and where it led. We were still enjoying their company when Peter and Connie arrived with my divorce certificate. It was good to know that I was now free. When Jody had a chance to talk, she bragged about our children and our life together. "We should have a wedding before you both get back," my mom said. That's when my father got Peter's attention. Grabbing a glass of fresh beer each, we followed him to the den because we couldn't get a word in edgewise. When word got out that Tammy had been arrested, people started calling with more information. Half of the DA's staff had to help us. Turns out what we knew was just scratching the surface of what Tammy and Willa were up to. "Now it looks like the mayor will go down with them," I said. "And what's going to happen to Willa's common-law husband?" I asked out of curiosity. "How involved was he in all of this?" "He'll probably be disbarred, but he'll be involved in raising their children," Peter said. "Nothing we found links him to the witches." "Has anyone notified Aunt Josie?" Connie asked, her voice filled with concern. "Jody's dad wears a size 6.5 ring," I said, in case you were wondering. A few minutes later, Peter and I were on our way to the mall, where he bought Connie a set of rings knowing Jody's taste, and I bought a 3-ring engagement set. When we returned, we were pleased to find that they didn't know we had left. I was on the phone. The house was already bustling when Karen and her boyfriend arrived, filling every room. We all crammed into the living room, the men fetching extra chairs from the kitchen. Dad pointedly directed Jody to sit in his chair, a subtle cue that didn't escape Mom's sharp gaze. She observed the scene with hawk-like intensity. A hush fell over the room as I knelt before my common-law wife, surprising her with my proposal to make our union legal. To my relief, she said yes. The party continued, its celebratory atmosphere shifting to a new, more profound level. My father, beaming with pride, declared his intention to make up for 7 years of missed time with his son. He proclaimed that Jody and my engagement was the perfect way to begin. Peter generously offered to drive Jody and me back to Joss afterward. A significant weight of stress and anxiety lifted that Friday. We obtained our marriage license at City Hall. Jody discovered, much to her delight, that she could fit into Connie's wedding dress. Jack readily agreed to be my best man, and Karen stepped up as Jody's maid of honor. Dad, ever the gracious patriarch, volunteered to officiate the ceremony. I was forced to purchase a suit at Macy's. There was simply no way my future wife would allow me to marry her in jeans. On Sunday afternoon, surrounded by our entire family in my parents' backyard, we exchanged vows, met with universal admiration. Even the twins' father was present, a testament to the healing that had taken place. We explicitly stated our preference for no gifts, yet my former father-in-law, with a knowing smile, presented me with an envelope. "Colin," he said, "this isn't a wedding gift. It's your early inheritance. The rest of my estate will go to your daughters." I slipped the envelope into my suit pocket, momentarily forgetting its contents in the whirlwind of the day. The ceremony was extensively documented, with everyone filming and texting the videos to Aunt Josie. Someone inevitably asked about our honeymoon plans. Jody's response was both heartfelt and pragmatic. "After everything we've been through, once Grandma's settled into her new house, our honeymoon will be a week in Florida and a week in California, enjoying Disney with the kids. Because without family, we wouldn't be where we are today." The next day, before heading home, I presented Jody with an envelope containing a bank promissory note for $100,000 and a short note. "Thank you for helping to fix karma." I always suspected the twins liquidated their mother's assets. I will enjoy watching them receive the just reward for their actions, and so will my granddaughters. Jody quietly placed the envelope in her purse, offering no outward reaction. After warm embraces with my daughters and parents, Jody and I climbed into the U-Haul, driving away, finally free from the burdens of the past.